Plus, we had the incredible privilege to learn Daf Chof Gimel today in Maseches Yevamos. If you remember, again, the Gemara was focusing on an interesting question that began on Chof Beis and Amud Beis, namely that if a man had relations with his sister, who was also the daughter of his father's wife. So we had a machlokes in the Rabbanon and Rabbi Yossi about the level of liability. The Rabbanon said that ultimately, again, he's chayiv twice, once mishum achosa because of sister, once because of Eshes Av. And Rabbi Yossi said, no, halach lamais is only chayiv because of achoso and not because of Eshes Aviv. So that created a whole discussion. The Rambam paskins, in fact, like the Rabbanon, that one would actually be chayiv a dual liability, once for a sister and once for a father's wife's daughter. The Gemara then went on to explain also that the liability for sister only applies in a situation where the mother of that sister is someone whom the father could technically have married. But if, let's say, a man fathers a woman, let's say my father fathers a daughter, ultimately with someone he cannot marry, that offspring, that girl, does not have the status of my sister. So the paradigmatic example of that would be, let's say my father fathered a daughter with a shivcha, a non-Jewish maidservant, or an ovedes kochavim, just a non-Jewish woman. Halacha l'maisa, that is not my sister, and therefore, technically speaking, there would not be biblical liability for relations with such a woman. But the Gemara then goes on to explain, kind of expanding on that. So on the beginning of Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, we spoke about this entire discussion, and the Gemara then went on to explain furthermore that halacha l'maisa, we've based on that, if a Jewish man fathers a child with a non-Jewish woman, that child is not Jewish. That child is considered to be the offspring of the Gentile mother and has no familial relationship to the Jewish biological father. Conversely, if a Jewish man fathers a child with if a non-Jewish man fathers a child with a Jewish woman, that offspring is Jewish. The Gemara had a discussion. The Gemara at first called the offspring kosher. The Gemara said, really kosher? No genealogical blemish at all. The Gemara said, rather, the child is Jewish but is pasul. So we alluded to the fact that there is some level of discussion exactly what that particular term pasul means. The Gemara then went on, we focused on the Mishnah. In the Mishnah we had some pretty exciting cases, right, regarding someone who went ahead and betrothed two sisters but was unsure which woman he betrothed. So the Mishnah said that halacha l'maisa, again, he has to give a get to both of them. Same thing if he passed away without children and he has one brother, the brother does chalitza with both of them, and from there the Gemara kind of built out on those cases and ultimately got into a variety of different variations of those cases. The Gemara said, based on the Mishnah, we learned from here, Kiddushin she'ein mesurin l'bia havi Kiddushin, that a marriage that cannot result in relations is still called a marriage. Now, where does the Gemara glean that piece of information from? So what's interesting is the fact that the first case in the Mishnah, a man goes ahead and is mekadesh a woman, one of two sisters, but he's not sure which one. The Mishnah goes ahead and demands that he give them both a get. Now remember, it would be prohibited from him to live with either of these women, because halacha l'maisa, one of them is his wife and one of them is the sister of his wife. But because he doesn't know which one is which, relations would be prohibited. So the Gemara says, you see from here that even though relations are prohibited, the Kiddushin itself is still a valid Kiddushin. So this proves that even a marriage which cannot result in Bia is still called a marriage. To which the Gemara says, no, you can't necessarily prove that point. Why? Because it's possible that the case in the Mishnah was where the man at first did have clarity which woman he betrothed, but then afterwards, again, for some reason, there was some level of confusion. So in other words, there was a point in clarity, it was a point of clarity, and that point of clarity, relations was permitted and possible, and therefore halacha l'maisa, the Kiddushin was effective. The fact that the ambiguity sets in later on, of course, precludes him from living with either of these women, but since for a moment there was clarity, he knew which woman he had betrothed. Therefore, this is what's called the Kiddushin HaMesurin L'Bia. It is Kiddushin that can result in an act of relations, and therefore it is a valid act of Kiddushin. All right, well, so that's where we left off today in the Meretz. We're continuing the sugya tomorrow. Wishing everyone a wonderful evening.